Welcome to Photoactive, a podcast about photography and technology. I'm Kirk McElhearn.
And I'm Jeff Carlson.
So we were just looking back at recent episodes in the past few years, and I was trying to find the first episode where we really talked about AI in photography. And we've actually talked about it a lot, in particular because you've written about it a lot, at least before your current full-time gig at CNET. The reason I want to talk about it today is I found an article in Petapixel, the Inspiring International Garden Photographer of the Year winners. And some of these photos are just amazing. You know, these Photographer of the Year things, basically anyone can create them. It's not like there's an official, macro photography of the year association or something. Anyone can set these up. They're for-profit things. You pay to enter the contest and you might win. But what I thought as I was looking to these photos, they look a lot like AI. And I think we've reached the point where you can't trust photos anymore, and not partly for these contests that people are going to submit photos that are AI, but in the news, the kind of memes that we see, in just a couple of years that we've been talking about this, we've gone from, okay, the generative fill in Lightroom is pretty good, but it kind of covers up this thing and here's a person with six fingers, to you can't really tell anymore.
That is definitely a massive, massive problem, both like for society, both for photographers. Looking at the article that you sent, and of course, everyone, the link will be in the show notes. It didn't look like any of them were AI, and it looks like they all seem to be real. There have been a few high-profile contests like this where someone has submitted something that is AI and got busted.
Yep.
If you run photo contests or photo things like this, your life is probably partially a nightmare because you have to just assume, all right, is this amazing thing, has it been created by AI?
But it's not just has it been created by AI, how much AI has been used in the editing process and the modification, because we've got a spectrum here.
Okay, that's a very good point. I love that we're starting with the topic and immediately it's like, okay, well, we can go down this rabbit hole, we can go down this rabbit hole. The question is, like, how much AI can you use when you're editing for a contest like this? I would say none. I think if you were going to present something as your own work, as a work of creativity, and I'll put an asterisk there, you need to be making an image that is the image. Now, that doesn't mean you can't go in and you can go into Lightroom and change tones and all of that, but I think you kind of have to be a little bit journalistic. And we've talked about journalism photos on this podcast too, because on those, like, you can't do anything like that because you have to represent the actual situation. If I'm looking at a beautiful landscape and I've got this maybe, let's say it's wildflower bloom season. And so you got up early, you went to this great location, it looks great, but you think to yourself, I really wish there were some more flowers over in this little corner. And so you generate more flowers in that corner. That would be disqualifying.
Okay, what about AI noise reduction?
I think AI noise reduction is fine because you're not changing the content.
The content.
That's like saying, I want to bring up the brightness. I want to, do something like that. If you think, well, the sky was kind of blah, so I'm going to do a sky replacement. No, absolutely not.
Yeah.
The problem is that there's no good universal way to tell. I mean, sometimes you can tell because oftentimes when you're doing generative AI, the resolution will be different because generating these things at higher resolutions costs more in the tokens you pay for them and things like that. And so sometimes the generative AI changes that you make are going to be a little bit lower resolution, a little bit blocky when you look at it closely. So like that's an indication. I think all the jokes about having six-fingered people, I think that's now a solved problem. I rarely see that anymore. And, well, we can talk about one way that has been proposed to tell what these things are, but visually it's hard to just look at something and say, well, that looks like AI. And the problem is the AI has gotten good enough that you look at something, and I saw something recently. There was somebody who had some really great pictures, and people said, oh, well, that's AI. And he had to defend himself. He said, no, here's the original exposure. Here's some outtakes. This is what this really looked like. And now, because there's so much AI, people are just assuming, well, that's a good picture, so it must not be real. And that's a problem.
So I'm looking at some of these photos, and we'll link in the show notes to Petapixel, and there's two of them in particular near the end that is a butterfly on, might be a poppy, and the whole background is blurry, but not the kind of blur that you usually get. And then there's another one with a bee on a mushroom, and the background is blurry, and both of those could be AI. I mean, you could generate photos like that using AI. There's no way to tell. There's really no way to tell. Now, there is something called the Content Authenticity Initiative, launched by Adobe, Twitter, and the New York Times, along with Leica in 2022, seeks to preserve the public's trust in digital image content. And so this basically watermarks your photos in your camera.
Yeah. This is it's also known as C2PA.
Ooh.
I know. We can't do anything without an acronym. I mean, really, this is
really
this is the way
yeah.
photography is. But with C2PA, it's not just like making a visual watermark. It's embedding metadata into the file so that something that knows to look for it can read it.
Yeah, when I said watermark, I didn't mean visual. I meant, what's the term when they stick something? Steganography. It's kind of like steganography, where some of the bits of the image are changed enough to be able to put a code in it. Like if you change the brightness level of brightnesses from 0 to 255, something like that, and if you make changes of just one number, then they could put a message in it. This is a spying technique. So I think it's something like that. It's not just metadata that's attached to the image, because that could be replaced. I think it's something that's burned into the image data that can't be replaced.
Yeah, it's something like that. I know that there are ways to work around it. I mean, I think honestly, if you open it in something that's, say, not Adobe, not Photoshop, and then save it out as a JPEG, like that gets rid of it, which is a problematic thing. The C2PA website also has, I believe, you can take an image and upload it, and it will check and see if it has that credential. And in terms of how that's represented, it's actually pretty cool, because it will tell you in the metadata, and again, depending on what program you have. Like let's say you open something in Photoshop. You have gone out with your Leica, you've taken some pictures, and you decided to change Stonehenge to pink balloons or something.
The Golden
Gate Bridge. The Golden Gate Bridge is now crossing over Stonehenge. And I'm like, wow, that is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. But I don't know if I really trust this. So I could open it in Photoshop, and it would tell me this has been edited with AI. It doesn't necessarily say what it is, but it gives you that flag.
It can't spot the part that's AI done, right? It can't say these pixels come from AI.
Right. Although there may be, I think Adobe might be working on more detailed explanation. Like it'll say generative AI has been used, or denoising has been used, something like that. So that's interesting. But again, it puts the burden on me as someone who says, I don't know if this is real. Well, then I have to do the sleuthing to try to figure out if this is real or not. And in most cases, it's not really going to come up. I mean, the Golden Gate Bridge should be in England. Why not? Right? So
crossing over the Wiltshire Plains.
Common sense, right? But there's another interesting thing about C2PA, and I wrote about this in CNET. I'll find the link and put it in the show notes. That Google, they are sort of taking this and running with it, and part of that is because they're involved in the creation of it. But if you have a Google Pixel phone, and I want to say it might just be the Pixel 10 and later, so the most current generation. But you take a picture with that, it's going to embed C2PA information in every shot you take. because their rationale, which makes a lot of sense, is you also want to know which thing is real. So you can look at a picture and see, oh, this has not been edited by AI. And so it gives you that authority, that verification that, oh, this is not AI, even though maybe I thought that it was. And it amazes me that this is not catching on faster. I mean, Apple has nothing to do with this. They aren't part of the actual committee or organization or whatever. And, well, who can really say what Apple's motivations are? But you would think with billions and billions of camera-taking devices out in the world and their long-time, quote-unquote, commitment to creatives and image makers and photographers, they would be on top of this because there's just so many reasons why you would now think that something is not real or this iPhone shot is not real.
And Apple wants people to adopt iPhone for professional uses. Yeah. So they should provide that sort of, I want to say, support for this sort of.
I think part of this is you have to define how much of the computational photography counts toward this, because every single shot taken by an iPhone goes through this pipeline,
trillions of
operations. Yep. And so you can make the argument, well, every picture you take with the iPhone would fall under this banner. But that's also the case with every picture that you take now with just about every phone on the market.
So maybe all these photo contests should only judge pictures shot on film. And if you get into the short list or the long list, you have to provide negatives.
I'm sorry, you said film and negatives? What are you talking about?
Yeah, that thing that people used back in the Neolithic times to take pictures before there were computers.
Yeah. I'm sure that at least the reputable photo competitions, I believe they have language that basically says, look, if you're chosen, you may be asked to provide proof or originals or raw files or whatever. That just makes sense just to cover their butts, really.
Yeah. And so if you're going to enter a competition like this, you should probably do lots of photos to show that here are my studies before I found the final photo, and like a contact sheet. So you have a narrative of your photo session, and you can point to the photo that you used, because maybe you don't shoot RAW, maybe you shoot JPEG and you want to shoot JPEG.
Totally.
Because it's, totally. So yeah, it's a complicated situation, because the winners of these contests, and if you look at the winners of this particular gardening contest, I mean, these are stunning photos. These are things that are dreamy, and that some of the lighting is just, unexpected and perfect. And like the one of the sort of, I guess it's a Japanese garden, the sunlight coming in from the right side. You could do that with AI, couldn't you?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think you could do that even without AI. You can, if you know what you're doing with Photoshop, you could absolutely do that. Actually, I had a moment, I was like, that looks an awful lot like the Japanese garden in Seattle. So maybe it is. Not. Oh, no, it's not. Exbury
Gardens. It says
Gardens.
Exbury. I think that's in Massachusetts.
Okay.
Or maybe it's in the UK. Exbury sounds
it does.
But I think the point is that we can't trust photos anymore. We particularly can't trust photos on social media, where provenance is not given, right? Someone uploads a photo, you don't know where it comes from, you don't know who shot it. It could be anything. The quality of photo generation from these AI tools is really quite surprising.
Yeah. Actually, I think this is a very good argument for not necessarily that you can't trust photos, because I think this is the same with phone calls. Like, you can't trust that any incoming phone call is not going to be spam, because it's all going to be spam.
Yeah, that's true.
And so you kind of have to – I mean, my approach now is I don't answer any calls unless it's somebody that I know that's been identified, which, is problematic because, what if it's a doctor's office or a FedEx driver or whatever?
My doctor's office here uses an unknown caller thing. They block their number.
Yeah. So that can be super frustrating.
And as you say, a FedEx driver, an Amazon driver. Amazon drivers here, they send text messages. But it's the same. You get a text message, click this link I'm not clicking that link. Ain't no way I'm clicking that link. Well, so every once in a while, I get an Amazon delivery text message, and it says something like, if it's dark, make sure lights are on, and if you have pets, make sure they're something. But only occasionally, right? And like, are these particular drivers who are worried, or is it a particular subcontracting company working for Amazon that does this, or is it Amazon's employees? I don't know. This happens maybe 1 out of every 10 Amazon deliveries.
Yeah. So, sorry, I had a greater point to that, which was it's not necessarily that you can't trust photos now, which we sort of have come to the point where you have to look at it skeptically, just like you have to approach phone calls skeptically. But I think now it's even more important that you trust the provenance of who shot it or who is sharing it, so that
Right. So you can't trust people.
so that you need to be able to trust people.
Well, no, you can't trust people because, first of all, you don't know if they're not Russian bots behind the social media account. Even if someone trustworthy reposts an image, you don't know if they got fooled.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Right?
I was thinking more in terms of if you were to post something, I would trust that that image would be either something that you shot or that you liked. Like, I would trust that you would have the sense to post something that was genuine or post something that says, hey, this is totally fake, but it looks really good, whatever.
Right. But that's because you know me personally.
Yes.
And if it's someone you don't know personally, or if it's someone whose account gets hacked.
Well, that's true too. Damn it.
There are so many. You just can't trust anything.
Can't trust anything
don't
or
trust
anyone.
The world.
Damn it.
Can't trust anything or anyone. All right. I want to move on to another topic that I found really interesting because this is an article from Digital Camera World, which I view in Apple News. Was the X half only the start? Fujifilm will explore the potential of 1-inch sensors. So the X half, we've talked about it. We've laughed a bit. It's got these vertical photos. It's essentially half the size of a normal sensor. I think it's not exactly half the size, but it's a 1-inch sensor. The popularity of this camera in Japan, and I think in a lot of Asia, has totally, caught them unexpectedly. Although the popularity of certain other Fujifilm cameras has apparently caught them, flat-footed because they can't keep up with them. I know the Fujifilm X100VI is still hard to get, apparently.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about this, and we talked a couple of episodes ago about how the most popular cameras in Japan are compact point-and-shoot cameras. And it looks like Fujifilm's going to try and make other compact point-and-shoot cameras because why not? Why not put a smaller, cheaper sensor into a camera? Because there are people who want to spend, I don't know, the equivalent of a few $100s for a camera that's different, that's not a phone, that has some camera characteristics that they never held in their hands in their lives because they're too young to have shot on film, and that has some sort of a nostalgic element to it.
Yeah, well, I think it gives you something close to shooting on film without having to learn how to shoot on film, purchase film. It gives you that more of a snapshotty. I guess when I say shoot on film, that of course is also a wide spectrum. But in this context, it's very much like I want to have a more analog experience, but I'm 16 years old. I don't have the money to go buy a bunch of film and get it developed and find a darkroom somewhere. I don't even know. Schools wouldn't have darkrooms anymore.
And I also don't want to edit my photos. I want them to come out finished. I want to be able to choose the look, make the photo, post it on whatever, and go from there. And you know what Fujifilm's best-selling product is, and that they've made a lot of money off. In fact, they've made more money off of this product than all their other cameras, I think. It's the Instax.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the little tiny film camera that makes business card type photos because of the instantaneous nature. You're with your friends, you take a photo and you give it to your friend. And I think they just came out with a new model.
I saw a reference to it, but I haven't looked into it yet.
They make a lot of money because there was they did something with Taylor Swift a couple years ago around the Instax camera. So it became a big deal.
Yeah, I think it's been a big revenue generator for them for a while. I mean, honestly, I think Instax
So interestingly, it's actually today that they just announced the new Instax Mini 13 TM instant camera, and also an update to the Instax Up TM smartphone app and a new Instax TM Mini Instant Film Variety. We're recording this on March 17, St. Patrick's Day. I'll be getting out of Guinness later. And so there's a press release here talking about it. Easy hand-free selfies because it's got a timer, close-up mode, selfie mirror, auto adjustment, et cetera, et cetera. So this is following in the footsteps of the popular Instax Mini 12 TM instant camera launched in 2023. So this is the first one in more than 2 years. This is actually, I guess, a big deal for Fujifilm because, well, they do get a lot of money off of this.
Well, and they also have like little portable printers that don't have the camera involved.
Yes.
And so even if you have an X106 or, even my XT3, it will print an image directly to one of those little things over Bluetooth. I mean, it's kind of brilliant, kind of cool. And
it is when you think about it, because, we're looking at photos that are like, oh, here's the raw photo and we're masking and we're denoising and all this. And people are like, I just want a picture of my friends, or I'm at a concert, I want to take a picture of the band, that sort of thing. And it's a totally different thing. Like, yes, you can do it on your phone, but the idea of being able to print it out immediately with a battery-powered mini printer and to hand out photos to your friends and imagine 4 friends and they all have the Instax camera and they're all taking pictures of each other and they're throwing them. And it's I'm too old for that, but if I was 25 years old, I would find that fun.
Totally. I mean, honestly, if we had those and it was you and I and 3 or 4 other people that we know, we would absolutely be doing that. So, yeah.
Yeah. But back in the day, it was like, okay, you've got your camera, you drop your roll of film in this yellow Kodak envelope that gets sent off to the thing and comes back a week later. And of course, it got quicker over time, but in my days, it was a week to get your pictures developed.
Yeah.
All right, so we can't trust photos, but we can trust snapshots. What have you got today, Jeff?
We can trust snapshots, and we can trust each other, just you and I.
How do you know I'm real?
Damn it, you're right.
We've never met. We've only done this through screens.
That's true. You are a very accurate simulation. So, and honestly, adding the cats was a pretty good
They're
tell.
hard to simulate.
They are hard to simulate.
Yeah.
So snapshots. One of the things that was announced this week is a brand new AirPods Max 2 headphones. Now, I'm going to take full credit for this because my AirPods Max, I have had a pair since 2021. And earlier this year, they started not working. And I realized that one thing that you can try, and this worked, was you can put them in the freezer and it makes them work again.
I was literally thinking, oh, he's going to put them in the freezer because there are like hard disks and other things. You put them in the freezer, they work.
Yeah. The theory is, and again, I wrote an article about this for CNET also. Like some of the wires get cracked because the cups get turned so often to put it back in this weird little case. And so those wires get cracked and we freeze them, they shrink and it fixes it for a while. That's the theory. So I did this for a while. It worked for a while and then it didn't work. So I needed to get new headphones, but I didn't necessarily want to buy the AirPods Max that were current because they had the old technology. They just had USB-C in different colors. And also, completely valid, they're still $400, $500, right? So
yeah. I think $549 US, $499 in
$549. I think I got mine on like a Black Friday sale for like around 400, 450, something like that. But still, that's a lot of money. And so I wore AirPods Pro for a while. My wife and I share a workspace, and she's on the phone a lot. And so I typically have headphones of some sort on all day. But having them in my ears for so long just became irritating. And I thought, all right, I need something. So my snapshot today, after that long story, is some headphones that I got. Anker Space One Soundcore noise canceling headphones. Sorry, Anker Soundcore Space One. Basically, they're $100 headphones. They are nice enough. They do give some noise cancellation, not as good as the AirPods Max, but for $100, they're totally fine for what I need them for. The reason that I switched over to the AirPods Max in the first place was because the ones I had before, it was such a pain to switch between devices, and the AirPods just they just did that beautifully. And so my solution is I've just paired them with my iPad and my iPhone, and I listen to music from my iPad during the day when I need that, and I switch to my AirPods Pro when I need to do something like this, like record a podcast or talk to somebody on a video call.
Yeah, we both have AirPods Pro right now because for many years on podcasts, I was using wired headphones because I like that on-eared wired headphone, but there's the wire's in the way.
Yeah.
And so, Bluetooth is better.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and, I looked at a whole bunch of different options. I thought about getting some Beats headphones because a lot of the technology is similar because it's all owned by Apple. But there were various, shortcomings with that. And I would still be spending $200, $250. And I thought, you know what? I'm making this too hard on myself. I'm just going to get some headphones that work. And because I did that, because I placed that order, a bell went off in Cupertino, and they're like, all right, we got to ship these brand new ones. So I imagine that at some point I might switch back up because honestly, even though they're expensive, I used them for years and the audio quality is great and the experience was great. Just the case was weird.
They're some of the most comfortable headphones I've ever worn in spite of the weight. Those earpieces are comfortable. And I've had big headphones with big, soft earpieces, but too big. And these ones just fit just right. And I mentioned to you before we started, I didn't know this was going to be your snapshot, that I saw this. And I bought mine in early 2022. And I sold them last year because I wasn't using them a lot. But seeing the new one and just remembering how nice it was to sit outside in the garden listening to music with those headphones instead of things sticking in my ears.
Yeah.
It's extremely tempting.
Yeah. All right. So that was my very long snapshot. What is your snapshot for today?
Okay, so I bought a gizmo a few weeks ago, and I've had a couple of these gizmos over the years, but this is the one that I think is going to last for a while. I can show you part of it because part of it's plugged in and part of it works on Bluetooth. It's the Logitech MX Creative Console. It's got two parts. They're both about the same size, about 3.5 inches square. One of them has 9 buttons. So if you've ever seen a Loop Deck or a Stream Deck, it's basically just a button thing. And the one I'm holding up has a big dial in the middle, a roller on top, 2 buttons on the left, and button on the bottom left and right. And the main reason I bought this is there are 2 types of editing I do. Podcasts, where I do it in Logic Pro, and screencasts, for which I use ScreenFlow. And I've long wanted something that can scrub in the timelines. Now, I can do it a little bit with the side scroll wheel on my mouse, but it's not great. And I thought this could be the solution. I tried it out, and it's almost perfect. I had a Loop Deck a while back, and I sold it because you couldn't program everything you wanted. Logitech bought Loop Deck a couple years ago, and they've rolled the Loop Deck technology into their mice and into this device. And one thing that never worked was using a dial on the Loop Deck to scrub a timeline. You would put a keyboard shortcut, but it would just never work. And on this, I've got the keyboard shortcut to scrub the timeline for each one. You set a profile for each app, so whichever app is the one that has focus, the device automatically works with. So mainly for editing podcasts and screencasts, but also the buttons. Like I've got my Zoom buttons here, so it comes with preset buttons for a number of apps, and I've got the Zoom buttons to mute my mic, to raise my hand, and things like that. And I rarely use them, but for some things, for example, when we do our Take Control books in Nicest Writer, there are a number of shortcuts that are really practical to have with a button, because I can't remember all these keyboard shortcuts. Like there are a lot of keyboard shortcuts that are the same in every app, and those I can remember, but in some apps it's just really annoying. I think this was 179 pounds, $200-ish. Since I have the Logitech MX4 mouse, it's the same grayish off-white color, and it matches, and I'm very happy with this. Now, it comes with presets for Lightroom and Photoshop, so if you want to use it for photo editing, you've got all sorts of options. But you can use it with any app. You can use it to launch apps. You can use it to launch a group of apps and files. You can use it to run Apple scripts, keyboard shortcuts, and everything. So Logitech Creative Console, MX Creative Console, available in pale gray and graphite.
Ooh, graphite.
And made with recycled plastic.
Okay,
they
great.
say. So there's that.
Cool. All right, I think that's it for this week. So we have cool gadgets and inexpensive headphones, and you can't trust anything everywhere, anytime, especially people.
Anything at all anymore. Till next time, Jeff.
Till next time.
Thanks for listening to Photoactive. You can find show notes, including any photos we discuss in this episode, at photoactive.co. That's photoactive.co. We couldn't afford the M. You can join our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/photoactivecast. That's photoactivecast in one word. You can subscribe to Photoactive in your favorite podcast app or on Apple Podcasts. See the links on our website. And think about leaving us a rating or review in iTunes or in your podcast app.